Hello everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm very happy to see so many people in this group. This presentation will be in English, and I will also provide some translations in Portuguese, or someone else providing them for me because I don't speak Portuguese. And today we're going to talk about ain't I an animal? Aren't we animals? And I will explain to you why I asked this question using intersectional theory and connecting that to speciesism and the anti-speciesist movement. So what are we going to do today in the next 1.5 hours? First, I will talk a little bit about intersectional theory and a bit about the history of it and the theory itself, where it comes from and how we can use it. Then I will talk about oppression and domination, and what is the relationship between these two, about the oppression of human animals and non-human animals. And I will do this using 3 examples. So this is the second row, speciesism and patriarchy. What is the intersection between them? Speciesism and cis heteronormativity. And speciesism and white supremacy. And of course, there are many other different intersections that we can think of. And these things can intersect again with each other. We can have like 10 intersections at the same time. But I will focus for clarity on these 3. And I will, for example, not focus on the relation between capitalism and speciesism, because I think this is a little bit more clear for most people that these are related. But I want to focus on the ones that are less commonly thought of. And after this presentation part, we will move to a working session. So we will work together on the things we just discussed. And I will do that using 2 questions. How can movements support each other? Hello, it's okay. Welcome. And the second question is, how can these struggles actually converge? So can we see different movements, different struggles, instead of being 2 separate things? Actually, as really understanding how they are deeply connected and how they really intersect, and that can help us to become stronger in our movements and have more solidarity between the movements. So every second slide will be in Portuguese. If you want me to stay a little bit longer on them, just like raise your hand or say something. But for myself, I need to be on the English slides, but feel free also to ask any questions. Yes, yes, I'm not here to give you my idea of what it is. I'm here to work together with you and to discover with you what this subject means for us. So feel free to ask any questions, give any comment, just raise your hand or like do something to catch my attention. And also for the translation, if you need the translation, just give a shout. So first, I will tell a little bit about myself. So my name is Sheila Ishwarat. I use she and they pronouns. And what is my positionality? Have you heard of this word? Has anyone know this word? So in Portuguese, I heard we can say posicionamento no social. So it basically means like what is my social position and where I am in the world. and where I am in which time. So now 2023, I'm born in the Netherlands, but I'm born in the Netherlands with an ancestry from Suriname and from India. So Suriname is a country in South America. My parents are born there and many generations before them. And the end of the 19th century, my ancestors came from India and moved as indentured workers to Suriname under the Dutch colonialism. So this is my position in the Netherlands. Basically, this is how people see me, how they perceive me, and also my identity. And besides that, like my ethnical identity, I have a sexual identity, so I'm a pansexual person, and I have a gender, so I identify as a cis female. And of course, there are many other layers to identity and positionality that we can think of, and everyone has this for their own. Besides that, I'm an activist, and I'm involved in different movements, like the anti-racist movement, the feminist movement, anti-capitalist, and the anti- and decolonial movement, to just name a few, because there are many different convictions that I have and different movements that exist. But let's say these are the main ones for the moment. And I have a background in political sciences and healthcare sciences. And so I did do a study about racism and about intersectionality and also about ecology and philosophy. So that is a bit my educational background. And then I'm also here with FALA. FALA is the animal rights organization here from Portugal. They are a pro-intersectional animal rights movement, and they believe in the grassroots power of community. And they have a very interesting way of campaigning, which is through pressure campaigns. And they pressure not the first line of animal abusers, but the network, the social environment, and the secondary targets. So I find this a very interesting approach. And I'm happy to be a consultant with that. They're organized horizontally, and they're based on violence. And they want really to build bridges between. So this is also why this presentation is for today. But that's about me, that's about FALA, and I'm really interested to know also which movements are you involved in. So can you give me some shouts? Which movements can be more, can be one? What is present here in this room?
Animal state movement?
Animal state? Yes. What is that?
It's a movement about
Okay, let's go back. Yes. What else? Indigenous rights. Great. Climate justice.
And social justice.
Social justice. Great. Yes.
Feminism.
Feminism. Any more? I'm sure there are more. Okay, we will get to it later, because this is also part of the working session, to work with different movements and to connect with them. But it's really great to know that there's already this big diversity, and I will try to address these different movements and also different terminology and concepts. But I think because we're using intersectionality here, a lot of things will connect. So when we talk about oppression, there's this certain structure which is very similar. It's not the same oppression, but it's very similarly structured. There's supremacy and there's oppression, domination and oppression. So this is something we will discover today. So, intersectional theory, a short history. Does anyone recognize the woman on this picture? So on this picture, you saw Sojourner Truth. And Sojourner Truth, she asked or she proclaimed actually in 1851, "Ain't I a woman?" This was part of her speech, which she did at the Ohio's Women's Rights Convention. So who was Sojourner Truth? She was born as Isabella Banfi Swartegil around 1797. We are not sure. But she died on the 26th of November 1883. And she was a woman who was born into slavery in New York State. And during her life, she gained freedom in 1827. So what happened at this conference in 1851? It was called the Ohio's Women's Rights Convention. It was a really big convention at that time, part of the women's suffrage movement. So a movement for women to gain voting rights, because women couldn't or were not allowed to vote in that time. But as you can see from the history of Sojourner Truth, she was born into slavery, she gained freedom, and just in 1851, where racism and white supremacy were still rampant and very, very present in very aggressive and violent ways, you can sort of see the historical context of this conference. So there was this suffrage movement convention, and actually she asked this question, "Ain't I a woman?" Because the other women didn't recognize her as a woman. And why? This is because she was black, because she was a racialized person, born into slavery. There was still slavery at that time. And she was also the only black woman at this conference. So all the other women were white. And so essentially they were voting, or they were fighting, only for the rights of white women to vote. Of course it said women's rights, suffrage movement, but they didn't really recognize the humanity and being a woman of black women. And they didn't want her to speak, but she did. And then she held this beautiful speech where she said, "Ain't I a woman?" And this is also then why the title of this presentation is "Ain't I an Animal?" It's showing this intersectionality. So here is intersectionality between being black, being racialized, and being a woman. And in this presentation, being an animal and being other things that we are in this society. So that was a short history about Sojourner Truth. So from there we go a little bit more into the theory. So intersectional theory. Is anyone familiar with this term? Yeah? Great. Okay. So you might know that this term, it was coined, so it was first used by Kimberly Crenshaw, Afro-American woman, to explain the unique experience of oppression that you have when you are both black and a woman. So this was years after Sojourner Truth proclaimed this. So her theory also comes from that history. Because she saw that the oppression that she was faced with, Kimberly Crenshaw, was not the same as white women. And there is something very particular about this experience. I will get into that a little bit later when I go to the examples. So she talks about this intersection. And the intersection of identity. And in that actually we can sort of distinguish two types of identity mainly. So we all have this. We have like a social identity. This is external. This is how other people see us. And we have an internal identity. This is how you see yourself. This is what you think you are and how you behave in the world. But this is not always the same as how other people see you. For example, sexuality, something you cannot always see, or gender, misgendering. People feel like they are a certain way, and other people perceive them differently. So this is like a layer, two layers of identity, social and personal. And based on that, you can have different oppressions, because people can see you as something and oppress you as something, or uplift you as something. But it doesn't need to be that you actually think you are that. For example, if you're perceived as male, you might have the benefits of patriarchy, but maybe you feel that you are actually a woman, you are a female. And in that sense also have the feel the oppression of patriarchy at the same time. So this is something very interesting. And so, like I said, the identity, I explained before, positionality. The identity, it also differs based on positionality. So speaking for myself, in the Netherlands, I am perceived as a person of color, I am racialized. This is most often the first thing that people see. But if I go to India, I'm an Indian person, and everyone thinks I'm Indian, and I just mix into the society as if I've always been there. But it's 5 generations ago that my family already left. So internally, I don't feel Indian, because I've just been there to travel. And there are, of course, some cultural elements that I recognize, but it's not the culture I grew up in and the society I grew up in. But this shows like the difference between this, like how people perceive you and how personally you feel. So is this part about the intersectional, is it clear? Does anyone have a question about it? No? So then we move on to another part about intersectional theory as well. So about oppression and domination. This is Patricia Hill Collins, and she sort of developed intersectional theory a little bit further. And she theorized what she called matrix of domination. And this matrix of domination is basically explaining that your oppressions and dominations can also intersect. So you can both have identities that sort of put you in a dominating position, but also identities that put you in an oppressed position. So it's not, oh, I have this identity, so I'm oppressed in all regards. No. There are ways in which you also have dominating, or some people also have dominating identities. So for myself, for example, born in the Netherlands, Dutch passport, puts me in one of the highest economies in the world, very rich country. So in that sense, I have a dominating position towards other people in the world. But there are other parts of my identity which put me in a oppressed position in the Netherlands. So I think it's important to understand this difference between oppression and domination. And to always be aware that we are not just in one place, that we are not just either oppressed or either dominating. So, what are the relations between the oppression of non-human animals and human animals? So I will further use this terminology, non-human animals and human animals, to already make clear sort of the standpoint that I'm bringing forth in this presentation. We are all animals, and we can debate about it, but this is what I'm going to put as an argument here. And next to it you can see a quote, maybe some of you recognize it, or you will recognize the translation. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others, which is a quote from George Orwell, yes, from Animal Farm. And for those of you who've seen it, very interesting, or seen the movie or read the book, very interesting development of socialism and capitalism and communism, where indeed some animals become more powerful and more, they become oppressing and the others are oppressed. But yeah, why? Why? This is something that has so many parallels, and this is of course why Orwell wrote it like this, has so many parallels with the world we live in and the societies we live in. These animals actually are sort of reproducing what us humans are doing to others. So, like I said, I already positioned this, human animals. So are humans animals? And yeah, I have had many discussions with people about it, and yeah, I will basically, I will explain a few arguments to you, and well, we can have a think about it, and if you don't agree, I hope you will agree afterwards. But basically, if we speak in biological terms, humans are classified as Homo sapiens, the wise apes, and that those are mammals. And mammals, they are animals. They are part of the animal kingdom. So this is when we speak in the biological terms. Yeah, I see maybe the second one is not very visible to you, but it says, why are humans not animals? So what are actually the arguments that that are actually also used academically to say that us humans, we are very different and we are special. So this is called human exceptionalism. Exceptional humana. I'm not sure if I said that right. So yeah, there are many different arguments that people have thought of, like why are we so different? Why are we so much better? And there are like religious arguments for it that was given to us by God. And there are also like these sort of academic arguments to it. So one of them, of course, the most prominent one being us humans, we are intelligent and we are rational. Like we use our brain in a different way. Another argument can be humans can construct buildings like this one. Wow. Architecture, this is something that humans do. Humans are creative. yeah, we create stuff. We have artists, we have music. We use language, another one. And another argument is humans have a desire for health. We want to be healthy, like look at the hospitals, look at the development of medicine, pharmaceuticals. We all have these things. But basically it's not true. And I will shortly explain for each of them why. So intelligence and rationality. As humans, we have constructed this idea of intelligence and rationality based on what we think is intelligent. But if you look at nature or other animals, they have intelligence, but they use it maybe not in the way that humans have defined it. And there's another layer to it. Because this argument of intelligence and rationality, it is also, and it is still today used, to oppress certain groups of humans. So racialized people. Still the argument that black people, people of color, are less intelligent is used to this day. It was, a few years ago, it was used in the Dutch parliament to say, someone actually really said, black people and racialized, or people of color, are less intelligent because they score less on IQ tests. IQ tests are made by certain people and based on certain education that make some people score high on these tests. So it's a very exceptional way of looking at intelligence. Constructing buildings and architecture, not true. Has anyone seen a termite hole? That is a construction. Anyone see a bird's nest? That's also a construction. But it's not a construction like this building, but it's a different way of constructing. And it's still constructing. Creativity as well. There are so many animals who also create stuff. There's this video of a fish who's actually creating a super beautiful sand painting, then using my human concept of it. But it's very beautiful, and that is a way of creating stuff. And maybe it's not the way like a painter uses a brush and paint to create something, but it's a different way of using creativity, and I would definitely say that is also creativity. Use of language, also something that has been used to disqualify certain humans, especially during colonialism, but also still till this day. English, for example, being this language that everyone in the world should speak, and it's like a universal language. There are a few like this. And if people don't speak it, they are seen often as less intelligent or more stupid than others. But also animals use language. They communicate with each other. And I think it's also not just about language, not about just using your vocals, but it's communication. So even if we look at trees, they communicate with each other. They send signals under the ground. And this is a different way of looking at using language. Like really being able to connect and communicate with others around you. And then finally, a desire for health. This is also, we see in the animal kingdom. There are examples of monkeys. For example, if there's one in the group that is sick, sometimes they will exclude them, sort of like put them in isolation for a while until they get better, in case, just to assure that the others don't get sick as well. Or actually sort of using medicine, so they also know we have to eat this fruit or we have to eat this leaf to cure what we have, this kind of disease. So they also have a desire for health, and they even have knowledge how to become healthy. So what are these arguments? These arguments, they are, like I said, in biological terms, humans are animals. But these arguments, they are based on sort of like the social, political idea of the human. So I wrote it there with a capital H, because it's not human as in the Homo sapien, this idea, it's really the human as, yeah, an exceptional being, but it's not, it's not biological. So yeah, like I explained already a bit, where have we seen these kind of arguments for human exceptionalism before? Very clear in racial colonialism. So during these colonial times, non-white humans or racialized humans, they were classified like as savages. And as pagans, because they were not religious, so you were pagan. Uncivilized and tribal, but even as animalistic. So these are similar arguments that are used. There are still these arguments are used to this day, also for humans, but they are also very much used and put on other animals, other than human animals. And one important point there was the valid-bullet debate, which was in the 1550s, 1550, 1551. It was a debate mostly between two, it was a Christian debate between a theologian and a university professor, where they were actually asking the question, are non-white people, are people of color, are they human? Do they have a soul? Are we allowed to oppress them and use them as slaves? To transport them, to kidnap them? And this was a real question that they posed. Are they human? And they basically said no, they are not. So we are allowed to use them and exploit them, like we do at this moment with cattle, with animal agriculture. Because, well, one of them said they don't have a soul, so they cannot be saved. The other one said, oh, they maybe have a soul, but they're really childish, so we can just use them because it doesn't matter. We have the right, it's justified to use these people. So they were not really human, and it was just permissible to reduce these people to slaves. And nowadays we use the term enslaved people to sort of distance us from actually using this term slave, because in the term slave you are already not recognizing someone's humanity. So when you say enslaved people, you are recognizing that they are people, that they are human, but they were enslaved before. Anyone, a question about this?
Can you clarify that part of enslaved people, the perception we have? It's not clear for me, sorry.
Yeah, sure. So, if we use the term slave, we are already actually saying that the people we say are slaves are not human, because they are slaves. We can use them and exploit them. But if we change the terminology to saying enslaved and people, we are saying first they are people, but enslaved. So used as a slave.
Okay.
Yeah. So make it.
Yeah.
Thanks. So from there we go to the different intersections. So first speciesism, and patriarchy. I want to check quickly, does everyone know what speciesism is? Everyone? More? Okay. Speciesism is a term that is used to name the oppression of other species. So, in this sense, us human species and other animal species. So, that is the Portuguese translation. So, it's a term that explains the supremacy and the hierarchy and the domination of different species. And I'm gonna develop first why speciesism is connected to patriarchy. And you see a few pictures here. You see a picture of some chicken, of cows, actually only the udders of the cows. These are Playboy bunnies and bullfighting picture. So the relationship between speciesism and patriarchy. So first, patriarchy, it dehumanizes and animalizes women and femininity. So for example, women, they are reduced, so this is very linguistic, but it shows, I use the language to show the oppression, how it becomes clear. So, for example, women, they are reduced as cows. Think of some examples of, in your life where women have been called cows. Milk cows, or like cows being all together. But also chicken, like so many times that women have been called like, oh, that's just a chicken, a group of chickens, or chicks, or this kind of language that is used. Or queen bee, that's also an example. And of course it's very culturally specific, so I'm not sure if maybe in Portugal there are other examples. Someone has an example which is used in Portugal in this sense, to like what's...
The cows are very common.
Cows are common?
And the chicken as
The
well.
chicken also either.
Yeah.
Goats.
Goats.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have so many.
So many.
And sheep.
Yes. Yeah, so, and what you see often in this kind of use of language, it's very reductionistic, it's very dominating, and it gives a certain image of women that they are docile and they can be used, and often it's also the way that women are classified, so cows, goats, chicken, these are the animals that we eat, if you are not vegan. Or not vegetarian. So this is in the industry, these animals, they are eaten. You know, we can just eat them and hi. Another, I'll get to that later. So another thing, the Playboy bunny. Yeah, bunny, of course, soft, it's cute, it's docile, you can use it, you can play with it. Same thing with these Playboy bunnies. You know, you can play with them. They're soft, they're cute. So it's also like it's sort of a cute way of describing women, but it's still a reductionistic way of describing women. And of course, the Playboy bunny is not like a cute soft bunny or like a real bunny, but it's also sexy. So there's the sexual part for me. And then the other interesting thing about it, these animals and these examples that we use, and that women are oppressed as, often, if we look at the industry, these animals, like I already said, these are the animals we eat, these are the animals we exploit. So chicken, industry uses almost exceptionally the female chicken. We don't use really the cock, the male ones. Most also the baby chicks, the male ones, they're killed. They're just put in the grinder right away. And the other ones, the two types, like one egg-laying chicken, and the other one meats chickens. And the same for cows. We just use them for milk and for their meat. But we don't use so much the bulls. But I will get to that twist in the masculinity part just later. So basically what this intersectional theory about patriarchy and speciesism is saying is dehumanization and animalization of women, but also the feminization of what we want to oppress. So seeing them really as female and gendered, and to use them in such a way. But yeah, like I already said, there is this opposition for masculinity, which is often when males are compared to animals or given some animal stereotypes, it's often these kind of like strong images and fighting, aggression, a lot of testosterone. And so we can think of lions. Lions are often seen as like the strong king of the savannah. It also needs to be protected. Some people like to shoot it, to hunt it. But you know, there is something very masculine about it. Basically, it's very virile, like like aggressive and tough. It's cool. And males, they can also be compared to lions, and like a hunter or like a king. And then I thought also of bullfighting, because I heard that in Portugal this is still really a thing. This exists. And of course there you can really see this adrenaline and testosterone going on, and it's, of course the bull is being killed, right? But it's not used in the same way that we're using cows, the female ones. We're used for the meat and the milk. But this is really like a big portrayal of toughness and of fighting, and bravery. So these are kind of like the linguistic stereotypes that show how we are actually perceiving the world, how our societies are saying like this is how the world is to us. Anyone, something to add or a question about this? Yeah.
I have a comment.
Yes.
I see some frequent, like a lot of people feel attacked by by feminist theory, because like, oh, but men are also oppressed. But what I feel like they fail to understand is that the oppression that happens between males is usually it exists to maintain the oppression of women, like like in the usual feminizing of men, weak men, or little weak, that exists as well to propagate the idea that also the female is weak. The oppression of men between men is like it's a mechanism of propagating another forms of oppression as well.
Yeah. Thanks for that. I think this comparison, it really shows, there are these binaries. There's like, this is feminine, this is masculine, and you have to be this or you have to be that. But in a way, this kind of image that is made for men, it's also oppressing for men, because society is saying you need to be tough and you need to be testosterone, no emotion, you need to fight. And yeah, like you said, that is also used again to oppress women. But yeah, men also have this oppression of this stereotype being put on them. Yeah. So yeah, this really, like, it's important to understand these are really like the two binaries, like the two big societal separations of two things. Nothing in between. There's just this or that. So let's move a bit to speciesism and cis heteronormativity. So this idea of cis heteronormativity, it also comes a bit from this Darwinist idea of the survival of the fittest. And that the best combination and the ideal combination of genders and sexes is to have, again, the binary of the male and the female. That is the most logical, that is the logic of nature. And that is how it should be. So, yeah, this is really an argument that has been developed over time and that is sort of ingrained into our thought. To say that combination, male-female, that is normal, that is how it should be. But if we actually look at how nature is doing things, we see that it's not just hetero, it's not just cisgender. There are different genders in nature, and there are also very much different sexual relations in nature. And by classifying them as outliers, as like different, we are not accepting that this is just a natural part of how the world, how the ecosystem is working. So there are so many examples of non-hetero relationships in animals. Just to name three: baboons, dolphins, pandas. But basically, just check, even on Wikipedia you can find it, it's such a list of animals doing stuff with whatever gender and sex they like. And it's not that all of them are doing that, not like we humans are also not all of us having the same sexuality, but there are just these differences. And the same for gender. And there are many examples of animals that also don't have a fixed sex. So they are hermaphrodites. So two examples being snails. They can change their sex based on the circumstances they are living in. And clownfish as well. There's actually clownfish that live in groups, and based on who's the biggest is actually becoming the female. And there's one female and a lot of males. And that's how they live. And that is a picture of two gay male lions. I found them really good. So yeah, this is something that was really common. Okay, so now we get to the third and the last intersection that I will talk about today. Speciesism and white supremacy. I already touched upon it a little bit earlier. So non-white humans, racialized humans, in colonialism. So I'm using colonialism here not only as a thing of the past, but it's still on the piece in the present, it's today as well. Like I explained before, also with the Valladolid debate, these humans, they are classed as not really human, animalized. So the words I used before was primitives, tribals, slaves. So that are ways to sort of diminish other human beings. into something that is, it's not human, it's a bit more animal actually. And this is also used still till today. So you see there a protest, a guy holding up a board, a protest thing, which says, "I'm not a monkey." Because this is something, also in the Netherlands a few years ago, this was also planning parliament, that black people are monkeys. And yeah, this is something it's used by police, it's used in society, in many different ways, that racialized people are reduced, for example, with the term monkey, or baboon, or cockroach. And yeah, I'm sure you can think of other examples of how racialized people are also animalized in these ways. But what I also want to address here is another intersection that I think is important now that we've discussed patriarchy and speciesism and white supremacy. That is the intersection of gender with racialization. So, for example, black and brown women are seen not as docile and soft, but sexually aggressive, as predators. And this is an image that was really created through colonialism, where women were used as sex workers, as prostitutes, on the plantations. And where families were broken just to break the bonds that people had between them and to use them more effectively as slaves. And these women, they were also used, of course, to breed a new generation of slaves. So they were used in the same way that we are using animals today. For example, with cows, we separate them in the industry from their children and from the baby cows, and only use them to produce the milk. The milk is for us. The babies get other kind of milk. And so there are really these relations that you can see, like how racialized women were used before, and how these animals are used also today, really as cattle. But on the other hand, so I said black and brown, it should say black, not black. Asian women, on the other hand, but mostly then I'm talking about East Asian women, they are seen as submissive again. So in a different way that white women are seen as more or stereotyped as like docile and soft. You see the image there of Gwen Stefani with the Harajuku girls, it's one of the songs. Yeah, Asian women are seen more as submissive and have a different racialization going there again. And not only talking about women, there's also this different twist that is there for racialized men, so black and brown men. On the other hand, they are seen as sexual predators, like really dangerous to society. And like how many times have we heard politicians or media say, like, keep these men out because they're gonna rape our women. So they are really stereotyped as the sexual predators, as very hypersexual, and also very unfaithful. But this also has its roots again in colonialism and in slavery, where these men were actually used, exploited in these ways. So going a bit to the animalization part of it, these are two images of human zoos. Has anyone ever seen them before?
Yes.
So, of course, here you can see such clear links between how we use animals in zoos today and how these humans before were animalized and also put in zoos. You can pet them, you can feed them, or you can trade in sort of like natural habitat. But this is not even 100 years ago that this was a big thing still in Europe, in Paris, in Brussels, in the Netherlands. There were these human zoos. Okay, anyone questions, comments till now? Yes.
When you talked about the men being exploited, because you said they're recognized by society, they are sexual users, and I didn't understand how for that they were exploited in sexual ways.
Yeah. Okay, so you mean the relation to slavery and colonialism a bit?
The feminism and the connection to sexual predators.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so like in history, in like plantation economy, plantation slavery, black men, they were used only to fertilize the females, and the females were used to just breed the next generation. So they had to like bring new slaves on the world. And the families, like the relationships that they had between them, in these families, like males and females, with other relations as well, they were broken so that they couldn't have this kind of love and solidarity with each other. And this was like physically, like them not being able to marry, not being able to like, live in the same place, but also, for example, on the boats, when they were transported, transatlantic slavery, there was a deck for males, where all the males were in chains, and there was a deck for the females and the children. So even though that they had relations from the place where they came from, these were broken in very aggressive ways and separated into two decks. So there were different tactics actually that were used for these men to become, only there for the fertilization, for the breeding. And to this day, you still have the same kind of stereotype of, mostly of racialized men, that they are the rapists, they are dangerous, and sexual predators. Does it make it more clear to you? Yeah? Thanks. Anything else? Because we're going to move now to the working part. Yes?
Just I did the connection between the cow and the colonization. It's a bit the same. It's a production. It's you see what I mean? The comportment.
Yeah.
We did with human, after we did with nature, with the tree, with animal. It's the same way. It's a production, capitalism. Every time it's, you see?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, there are these different oppressions. Like I said, I just focus on these three different separate things, but in the animal industry right now, you can really see many different intersections. So also with capitalism, with colonialism, with patriarchy. So even though I explain them as three separate things, they are completely connected. And capitalism, for example, using other animals as not as living beings, but just as a product and as a machine that we can exploit, and we can just like create different genetics, so they produce more milk, and like we can use their body and use them as we want. In the animal industry, these animals, they have to reproduce when the farmer, when the industry wants it, not when they feel like it. No, they're actually like forcefully inseminated to reproduce.
and yeah, and it's going not only in the hack today, solely also in the thinking, how we think. So we think like they want. Everything's in the case, it's like this, you need to think like this, you see? It's also productive
Yeah.
to think, not a lot.
Yeah, true. Thank you.
Because I'm reading like an indigenous written book, and she talks about like species. Sorry, I can't say it, but yeah, that word. I think it's like pretty similar to one of the theories that she has about indigenous people proposed, which is cosmocentrism, which is the like contrast or like antithesis to anthropocentrism, which is like putting the human in the center, whereas cosmocentrism is like putting the whole ecosystem and like Mother Earth, like Crash Mama, as a system thing. So I feel like there's like a reflection that of speciesism and also that indigenous view.
Yes. Yeah, I think so too. And I think there's also a lot that like Western speciesist theory can learn from these indigenous ways and these knowledges. And yeah, seeing the world and all these living beings not as independent things that we can choose in our ways, but really as an interconnected like ecosystem, or Mother Earth, Pachamama, Gaia is another theory. So I think it's really important for us to start seeing not only the individuals as living beings and respect them in such a way, but also see the whole Earth as an interconnected place and interdependent. Thank you for that. What is the book, do you?
I can't remember the name, sorry. I was like reading a certain article, so I'm studying Masters for Climate Justice in the UK, and we have like some selected readings that we have to read, but this is like one article off the whole book. But I can tell you after.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Great. And great that you're reading that at university. That's
Yeah.
not always very common.
Yeah. I think the professors are like trying to get something outside of the mainstream book, so
Yeah.
yeah, like, kind of human-centric approaches.
Yes. Yeah. Great. Thank you for that.
I was thinking when you, now that you put that image of human Zeus,
Yeah.
I was thinking what the human Zeus have in common and in difference of, for example, the freak shows and the cabinets of curiosity, okay, that have a long story in Western civilization. What the difference and then what the similarities here between these kind of things. Because, for example, the freak shows, it's another layer of the problem. But the cabinet of curiosities, it's a different thing. But I don't know if it's mixed with this kind of thing.
I'm not. Yeah, the freak shows. I know about the freak shows, but I'm not sure if I know what the Cabinet of Curiosity is.
Oh, okay. Cabinet of Curiosities is a collection of wonder things, okay, of different things. Imagine the kings in the past that they don't travel. It was impossible to travel like today, okay? So different things from other cultures and animals or art objects or things like that, they collected in a cabinet, okay, in a chair, because they were different, so it was so fascinating at the same time, okay? And a lot of things that there's a lot of cabinets of this kind.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what if this connection makes sense, okay? I was thinking about
No, it does,
this
it
right
does.
now.
Yeah.
What can be the common traces between these things and the differences,
Yeah.
okay? Because, I don't know, I was thinking.
Yeah, I think, I think to understand it, we sort of need to go back to another layer, which is the human with the capital H and the other. So this is a term that's among others used by Foucault and by other theorists, that we sort of make someone else, it's the other, it's not really the same as us. And I think, with the freak show, of course, it comes in like a validism, the validism, the oppression of people who have different kinds of mental and physical abilities, making them into, the freak, literally, like the other, that is not the same as us. Like the same in cis heteronormativity, making everything that is not cis, that is not straight, that is not hetero, making them the outlier, the other. So this is kind of a similar structure you see in the many different oppressions. But one thing is posed as the superior, like the good thing, the normal thing, and everything that is different, that is not in that range, is the other. And great example.
Difference and curiosity always go together. Difference of me.
Yeah.
That you make.
Yes.
But curiosity is also there.
Yes. Yeah, I think that
I
really
was
shows.
thinking about that now. Maybe that's the two words that connect these three things that I was
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah, it's
And positive.
it's like positioning that other thing as it can also sort of have a positive connotation. I think we put it in a museum, into a cabinet, and look at it. Wow, it's so beautiful. But it's making the other as an exception and sort of like Orientalism, tropical.
And objectification.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's, the question is what is the but? Why? If you need to pay to go to the zoo, we know it that you get one explorator, you go to the other continent and you bring back something. It's like a treasure.
Yeah.
It's not. It's like a medal to show everyone I did that, I do that, I bring that. So it's just egoist, and for himself. I think for the zoo, it's a kind of business too. Is to show the Ottoman, yes, but I am sure, like all ethnic, we know which captain bring back them. You see, there is something like ego, and money at the end of the day. There is again about the money.
Yeah.
And how they care about them. It's important to, if it's really treasure, you care. You care like
Yeah.
it's your treasure.
Yeah, true, but I think this treasurization is also making something different, and it's putting the name on it. That it's not normal. It's just like something that we should use. It's something precious, and it's not accepting that as just being and just being normal, just being in this world. It's making it like something unique and different.
So that they might not even want to be put on this whole platform and like treasured. So
Yeah, because for other people it's just like who they are. It's their way of being and life. Yeah. So I like this discussion. Really nice. All these ideas and connections that you're already making. And now I will actually like to move to the working part. We have about 20 minutes for it. And so in the beginning of the talk, I asked you which movements you're part of. And this is because I would really like you to match up with someone else that is in a movement that you are not part of. And maybe I would love it if you can mix with someone, match up with someone that is in the animal rights or the anti-species movement. So putting a lot of pressure on the people that are in that movement, but are there people here present that are already in the animal rights or the anti-species movement? Okay, cool. Great. So, the goal of this presentation was to learn and understand how other oppressions are connected to the animal rights movement. So, if it's okay for the people who are in this movement, it would be lovely if you can work together with someone in a different movement. So, first, I think we should make some small groups. So, maybe stand up, get some energy. We've been sitting for the last hour and a half and a few minutes. Take a deep breath, or move around how you want. Stretch your body. Do whatever you need to get that energy flowing. And, let's take 5 minutes to talk to each other. And you can start with an introduction of yourself and which movements you are part of. And then whenever you're comfortable, just sit in small groups, I think groups of 5 approximately would be nice. So just try to link up with a few people in different movements, so not one feminist group, one capitalist group, but try to mix. So just take your time, 5 minutes, and then we'll continue with the next exercise.
I don't have any
You are not participating or you are not in any group?
I am not university. I am not a student. I am not student.
No, but why not?
Because the shield is my girlfriend. So, can record.
Not about that.
I am becoming present on all subjects, like also manifestation and everything. But I didn't sign on for company or association.
You don't need to sign.
Yeah, I am born in France, but my father is Italian, and my mother from Ile de la Réunion. It's near Madagascar, Mauritius. Yeah, my grandmother is Mozambique, African, and my grandma is Indian, and my father is Italian.
You must have nice.
And you?
I'm from Portugal.
100% from Portugal.
I was born in Portugal, but my father's side is Italian. My mother is but my parents my
Yeah, it's about yeah, or I think the whole is what? Sea shepherd, whole is what? Sea shepherd, yes, whole is walking. Tomorrow what you want to do? To prepare for the association and how you can think together about how you to think and act. I think it's about
it's like a topic
Agora eu vou nós vemos essa dificuldade que é ainda bem que não é. Nós vemos muito na FALA.
You've been on the later.
I'm not sure about what to just know that we are doing now working on fronts to system change. That's the system change. The system that exists right now is the one that is driving us to do investments. So we have to change that to something that really works and protects all our customers and protects all not just the profits of the company. That's why I am here to try to make a change. This until then, looking for that is disruption, civil disobedience, direct action. The shepherd does direct action, not exactly some cases might be civil disobedience, it's a very gray area. Normally it's done under the law, sometimes it's like this. So everything is important. For example, we have this talk we also had like a few weeks ago. Jerry Brown from the shop.
Era uma coisa licenciada, que você vai com esse cara. Você tem que sobreviver, né?
Só gerir rede, alguém tem que estar a fazer isto 4 horas por semana.
Yes, it's right. We talk about right, right, especially right. It's, yes, system of right. Everyone wants the same thing. It's about right. Right. The possibility to do, to have the right to do the treatment for its place. The sujet at the end is similar. It's like the society creates the feminine, the femme, how the society creates the animal, how the society creates the energy, everything is about right and the same, it's evolution, it's the same point at the end. So, yes, you're going to do bigger hole. If you do like this, or if you do one finger, if you do 5 fingers, it's going to be bigger.
quando vão estudar
Yeah, it's the same.
eles não chamam a sociedade de desenvolver um Estado. Eles chamam as coisas dentro do centro do Estado. Ou seja, não é não é bem assim, nós somos grupos que fazem que querem possivelmente que façam que mais hierárquicos e
Because yeah, it's
Things this way, I mean, negative things.
because they cannot lie. They cannot lie. The society cannot lie. Not tell the truth. Because before we don't have computer, the communication is different. But today, you watch by the windows, you see something is wrong. You have 20, 30 years, a few years, you see the changement. The government cannot say no, nothing happened. Like if you are fisherman, before you fish, oh many fish. Today you wait all day, no fish. What happened?
Yeah, I see that a lot from fishermen, like when they are doing reports about fishing, the fishermen don't catch much fish, like we don't know what's the problem, blah blah blah. It's like, okay, it's time to, you are the problem, but also people of the community, of course.
But yeah, with the meteo, the sea level, everything, the sea level.
So sometimes it's
Sea level.
Porque é um tema, nós trabalhamos neste tema aplicado às práticas do nosso tempo. E que está na função
muitos falam de ser super prático, né? Ou seja, às vezes começa lá a ver fala de estar bom, fala das outras coisas, e diretamente tem sphere, e fecha portas. Ou seja, tu tens uma coisa que é porta fechada, então tenta dar a função.
Há uma abordagem que há uma hierarquia de opções e uns são mais oprimidos que os outros e como é esta abordagem? O que é mais importante é lidar com isto é tudo lidar com isto é super competitivo
Pois, tempo antes de
knows that very well, and they really play nice, you can buy more stuff, like you're going to be happy if you do this or if you buy that. It's completely bullshit. This is completely untrue. The only way we can find the happiness and the purpose and feel that more is from within. Period. It's not outside. That's the main point. So the only way to solve this, is a revolution of awareness. The only way.
We are very super.
Until you achieve that, a lot of things are not going to change. There's not
Yeah, it is still the same people get the same decision.
Okay. Oh yeah, you can do that. Thank you for forming these groups, and I heard that there are so many interesting conversations going on already. I want you to take a little minute, half a minute for yourself and think about the movement that you identify with, or the group that you identify with, and what is kind of the philosophy, the way of thinking behind what you are fighting against. So if you are in the climate movement, what are you fighting against and why? Just take half a minute in silence. You can stay in your group and we will use that, what you thought of, for the next question. The question is also here, it's in Portuguese, if you want, the first one. So then in your groups, just say a little bit about what this philosophy is, what this way of thinking is, and try to find the connections. Give everyone a chance to just say what it is, and then try to see what are the connections between these philosophies, between this what you're fighting against and what you're fighting for, or who. So yeah, just gather in your group again, talk about that philosophy, and find the intersection.
We are fighting some people having the power. Other species. What they can explore.
I feel like we are in the game and everything we know, what knowledge we have, it's about... is it working? Yeah. I think, yeah, like a game, and we are, like you see the movie with the Jim Carrey. I feel a bit, because all knowledge is not true knowledge you need to have, because the true knowledge is natural, the oxygen, the water, the earth, that is true, that we don't lie. That is the knowledge from the sky and the earth. It's not other humans. You see what I mean? Tell you how you need to think, what you need to see, what you need to put in your mouth, how you need to eat, what you need to eat, how you need to all the physically all this knowledge, basically, you have, if you see the evidence, everyone, no problem. And I think all this knowledge going to consumption. Yes, to consume. We need to like this, we need to eat this, we need to do that, we need to think like this, we need to reject that, and all this thinking is too long, and they, because we are human, each human did the PIB of the country. The PIB of the country. So if the demography did the PIB of the country. For that there is many immigration to do good PIB. It's like you have 5 countries dominating, and every time they try to do the best. You see there is things to participate 100% inside the system. They give you food, they give you also medicine. It's the same people. They give you food, everybody is going to do the sugar, I don't know what. And after the seed, go to the level and did benefit against the shit they give you. It's like É everywhere.
Não era por estas palavras, mas era isso que eu estava a dizer.
It's practically.
Nós deixamos esta empresa explicar isto tudo.
I think, yeah, because it's normal. Yeah, you need to look after it.
When they start to think a little bit, they want to corporate or to
Yeah, and we cannot send them the work because it's not the fault of them. The society did that to them. This we need to, like to say, open age bit. But we have all elements to get to the kind of place. Because the climate is not good, the sea is not good, the animal is not good, the between the water, everything is not good. The results, you need to live 10 years. If you have children, it means something is wrong.
unfortunately there are ways to make a change. Yeah, either we do it because we want it and we do it in a conscious way, or by huge crisis. And we are going to get huge crisis. But the problem is that it's so big in the crisis that it's possible. Unfortunately, it's possible to change that very, very fast. I don't know what now, which is not going to happen.
Eu sou da opinião que não precisa de
The human rights is the fear, possibility of adaptation. Yeah, the human condition first.
não foi por um processo de consciência, eles foram para a rua e fizeram o que fizeram. Para o governo depois não está. Não precisa.
Open their eyes and then bend their head against the wall, and they start to breathe. But is it going to be great? I guess we have to focus a little bit because we have a confidential right now. So you know, oh, good. Okay, so we start by
If you don't have it,
I want to survive for sure.
Eu acho que às vezes agora tem que haver com empatia. Ainda mais com mais acho que é isso. Ou seja, se houver empatia, está a perceber muito também vai chocar com isso. A gente só quer os animais que vivem ao planeta para viver. Se eu quero os animais que estão a sofrer, como é que eu consigo ver que as pessoas vão dar as mulheres seja tentar tudo fazer se vir que o outro também está a defender. Venha para achar que outra pessoa.
The awareness about it's so much more than one issue, but about everything that seems interconnected.
Vida enquanto
If you want, you can still speak Português to get to know. You can do more
nós acreditamos que eu não sou parte é mais fácil mudar a lei anti-bordas. Se não fosse, nós mulheres e eu acredito que se não houvesse leis, that even wars, a maior parte das pessoas fazia coisas que nós só não also
Agora
Okay. Thank you so much. It's so great to see all these vivid conversations going on, and there's so much to talk about, and you have so much to discover from each other and to learn. It's really great to see. The break is now, and even though I see that you have lovely conversation, we need to wrap up. Like I said, I just want to grab a few keywords from your conversation. So, please just popcorn style, throw them at me. I will write them down. What did you learn from talking to people in different movements? What did you learn about this intersection? How are these things connected? I already posed this question in each group. So just tell me whatever you discovered and I will write it down here.
Unity.
Sorry?
Unity.
Unity. It has to be one word. Or if it's one word, it's going to be easier for me to write. Yeah, that's right. Connection with nature.
Empathy.
Empathy. Nice. Wow. Empathy. Oh, line on me. Yeah.
Education.
Systemic.
Education.
Education.
Isso ali não sei se quer dizer, por causa não tem autoquadro.
More words over there in black.
Awareness.
Awareness.
Freedom.
Freedom. Okay, sounds great. I think we can finish off here for now. Keep talking and working together, making these intersections. I really hope that you learned something about intersectionality today. That's something that you can apply in your lives and into your work, and that it's going to help you to make these connections. Work in unity, empathy, compassion, fight for freedom, educate. All these beautiful words that are here. And, well, again, thank you so much for being here. I hope you have like a short break left. There's coffee and some food. So, yeah. Thanks for being here. And
Thank you.
I hope to see you again.
Bom, Maltinha, vamos aqui terminar mais este direto. Dentro de momentos vamos ter o plenário porque é mandar sopa aos quadros. Obrigadíssimo por nos seguirem. Já sabem que este é um projeto, a Pita da Luz não é um projeto autofinanciado. Quero com isto dizer que as despesas são cobertas pelos ninjas, pela equipa que está no terreno. Se nos puderem dar uma ajuda para darmos alguns trocos aqui à malta que está a trabalhar, agradecemos imenso. Caso possam, é só entrar em contato connosco, seja por MBA ou transferência bancária. Não se esqueçam, Pita Revolution, informação sempre feita. Aquele grande abraço.